In a dark and mysterious corner of the Scottish Highlands, where the mountains meet the skies and the ancient forests whisper secrets to the wind, lived a sinister creature that for centuries terrorized mankind. Legend has it that this mystical being is a sinister cat of colossal proportions and enigmatic abilities, a feline that walks between the worlds of the mortal and the supernatural. The Cait Sith, also known as Cait Sith, was a being without equal. His fur, as black as the darkest night, shone with a luster that seemed to absorb the light of his surroundings, making him almost invisible in the shadows. Only a white spot on his chest, resembling the full moon, allowed observers to distinguish him in the gloom. His eyes, two sparkling emeralds, hypnotized all those who dared to cross his naive gaze. The Cait Sith was a shape-shifting being, capable of transforming into the figure of an old woman with an ability that defied human comprehension. Like a witch, she walked between worlds, communicating with the magical creatures and spirits that inhabited the deepest corners of the forests and mountains. Although generally considered a fairy in the form of a large black cat with a white spot on its chest, some legends suggest that, in reality, the Cait Sith was a witch with the ability to metamorphose into a feline up to 9 times. The myth relates that when a witch was discovered by the mob and these enraged people sought her death for practicing the dark arts, her only means of escape was to transform herself. It is said that, during dark and stormy nights, witches aware of their great power and willing to defend themselves from their pursuers, resorted to their ability to transform themselves into a black cat, swift and elusive, which escaped the clutches of their enemies at the last moment. However, this power of transformation was not unlimited. According to legends, sorceresses could only change their form 8 times, and if they transformed a 9th time, they would be trapped in their feline form forever. In her Cait Sith form, her supernatural and mystical abilities increased, and her ability to steal the souls of the deceased was what she enjoyed most, which caused great fear and anxiety among men, for it was believed that if the cat arrived at the funeral, the soul of the deceased would not be received by the gods. The cunning and strength of the cat witch made her an almost invincible figure, and her great abilities to elude her pursuers became a legend. It was said that the sinister ability to steal the souls of the dead was so feared by the Scottish villagers that her presence at funerals was undesirable, and they made sure at all times to keep the mystical creature away. In the remote villages, funerals were solemn and ritualistic events designed to ensure the safe passage of the soul of the deceased to rest in peace forever. One of the most important aspects of these ceremonies was to protect the soul of the deceased from the atrocious presence of the Cait Sith, whose mission was to steal souls before they could cross over into the afterlife. During these funerals, the atmosphere in the town was tense and expectant. Every detail was meticulously taken care of, and every citizen knew the role they had to play to keep the cat at bay. Preparations began with the positioning of the coffin in a central location, where mourners could surround it and keep a constant watch. Hundreds of candles and protective symbols were placed around the coffin, such as amulets and talismans, which the villagers believed would serve as a barrier against the supernatural forces that so frightened them. As the body of the deceased lay in its coffin, members of the community took turns standing guard. The guards were on constant alert, watching for any sign that might indicate the arrival of the sinister Cait Sith. They were often silent, listening intently to the sounds of the dark and unfamiliar night, aware that the slightest carelessness could endanger the soul of the loved one who was believed to be struggling to make it to a better life. In addition to vigilance, villagers employed several distractions to keep the animal away from the funeral. Among these, music and games played a key role. Village musicians would gather to play lively tunes, creating a counterpoint to the sadness and solemnity of the ceremony. Minstrels and dancers also joined in the celebration, performing acrobatics and dances that delighted those present and, they hoped, would keep the cat busy and entertained elsewhere. Despite the precautions taken, there was always the possibility that the Cait Sith would manage to approach the coffin undetected. For this reason, the villagers remained on alert throughout the night, eyes wide open and ears attentive to any hint of the creature's presence. In case the dark cat managed to approach the coffin, the guardians had to act quickly and scare the animal away before it had a chance to jump on the coffin and steal the soul of the deceased. These rituals and precautions were an integral part of village life, and their inhabitants considered them a necessary component to ensure the peace and well-being of their loved ones in the afterlife. Through these traditions, villagers would band together to face the unknown and protect their loved ones from the supernatural forces that lurked in the shadows. It is said that on one occasion, during a particularly somber and melancholy funeral, inhabitants of a small remote village faced a challenge that would test their courage and their faith in ancestral traditions. The fog descended on the village like a thick, wet blanket, and the villagers felt a deep chill run through their bodies. That night, the guards were especially nervous, for the fog seemed to conceal more than just shadows and silhouettes. Musicians played with desperate fervor, trying to scare away the creature they suspected was hiding in the thick fog. The minstrels and dancers redoubled their efforts, performing their acrobatics and dances with a frantic energy that betrayed their growing restlessness. Despite their efforts, however, the sense that the Cait Sith was near intensified, and the watchers clung to their protective amulets tighter than ever. As the night progressed, the guards began to notice strange sounds in the darkness. A rustling in the wind, a fluttering of feathers, a stealthy movement in the grass, increasingly convinced that the cat was near, but the citizens remained united and steadfast in their resolve to protect the soul of the deceased at all costs. As dawn broke over the horizon, dispersing the fog and bringing light back into the world, the villagers felt a deep sense of relief and gratitude that the soul of their loved one had crossed to the other side without being captured by the sinister, unknown creature. That night's experience, though terrifying, had further reinforced their faith in tradition and the importance of standing united against supernatural forces. The Cait Sith was also known for his divinatory abilities and was believed to be able to predict the future and know the innermost secrets of those who crossed his path. On the night of Samhain, the animal roamed the villages, visiting those who left a saucer of milk on their doorstep as an offering. Those who pleased the cat with this gesture received its blessing and good fortune, while those who did not risk being cursed by the creature condemned them to misfortune and bad luck. The sinister cat, in its immense wisdom, also had a deep knowledge of the herbs and plants that grew in the highlands, and was believed to have the power to cure illness and disease. The peasants sought his advice and help in times of need, though always with a touch of fear, for the nature of the Cait Sith was as unpredictable as the wind that whipped through the mountains. Despite the fear and respect he inspired, the mysterious being also had a playful and mischievous side. Pranks and mischief were attributed to it in the villages, such as spilling milk, stealing food, and disappearing objects. As the years passed, stories about the Cait Sith became mixed with legends of other supernatural beings, and the line between reality and fantasy became increasingly blurred. Some claimed that the black cat was a nature spirit, a guardian of the forests and mountains who protected the creatures that inhabited them. Others believed it was an envoy of the Celtic gods, sent to Earth to watch over and guide mortals on their way through life.